I am aware of the very real possibility that I've used the word exemplary to describe like probably over half of these preludes, which is, I mean, it's not what that word means. They can't all be exemplary. But as we're nearing the end of the series with the Bach preludes, such end being a lot closer than you might think if you're laboring under the very natural assumption that we're going to do all 24 of these, which sadly we're not. So as we're nearing the end, let me present to you the G major and the D major preludes kind of as a pair, and let's call these two the quintessential preludes for the Well-Tempered Clavier. Why do I say that? What makes them so, I'm going to use the word again, quintessential for the preludes of the Well-Tempered Clavier? First of all, they are both just bathed in major and minor thirds, which, as we've talked about before, is one of the key elements of, I mean, it's why it's called a well-tempered clavier, so that we have these absolutely gorgeous major minor thirds. Here in the G major prelude, the kind of example that I just played here, it's all major and minor thirds. It's unbelievable how he can keep it up. But it's really throughout the whole piece, both the G major and the D major preludes. So many elements of it that are just all about this beautiful sound of a major and a minor third. So that's one reason. Another reason, they are both pedagogically rich. I mean, all of them are pedagogically rich. Again, we've talked about this before. The Well-Tempered Clavier, the frontispiece that Bach wrote for it is it's just glorious. I'm going to put it up on the screen over here so you can read it. In the G major prelude, the name of the game are arpeggios. Right from the beginning, these wide arpeggios, both left hand and right hand. And in the D major prelude, it's scales. So they both pieces touch on crucial elements of piano technique, scales and arpeggios. As we talked about in the first episode of this series, just like the Aristocats say, you must play your scales and your arpeggios. Next reason, they are, I think, the culmination of difficulty. Both of them, I would say, are the most difficult pieces. There's a pretty gradual ramp up of difficulty in the Bach preludes, unlike at the Chopin preludes where there's a jump that's unbelievable. We're going to talk about that in a couple of episodes. But here, it's just a natural progression from easier to harder. And the culmination are these two pieces, the G major in its scale, arpeggios, and the D major in its scales. And both of them require kind of the same sort of technique. You need to have absolutely fine control, but very powerful control over all of the fingers, all 5 fingers, including the fourth. I mean, the fourth will always be much weaker. It's just the natural, the way the hand works. But you still need to have a very developed fourth finger with fine control and still be powerful over the course of, 2 minutes of these pieces, and with some very awkward fingerings. Well, maybe not that awkward, but they are difficult. So you need just absolutely excellent control, both in wide hand shapes and small hand shapes for scales and arpeggios. And now the last reason, and what I want to focus on in this episode and then in the next episode for the D major prelude, the G major I think is exemplary in rhythm and the D major exemplary in harmony, which again, as we've talked about in pretty much every single episode, are two very important elements of the Well-Tempered Clavier. The pulse, the dance that we talked about, and the harmony, which is pretty related to the major and minor third element that we talked about at the beginning of this episode. So in this G major prelude episode, let's talk about the rhythm. Last time we're gonna discuss how pulse is so important for Bach, as we've talked about. As I've said, it's pretty much not parroted, as I've what's the word here? I don't know, I really bash this idea in every viewer's head for you guys that have watched this, that Bach, when you think Bach, you should think rhythm and pulse and dance. So, we will talk about a little bit about technique at the end, but just very briefly. Here we'll talk about mainly pulse and rhythm. Let's dive into it. Well, there is no way that introduction was only 3 minutes, so I don't know how I'm going to make a short of it as a trailer. Who cares? All right, rhythm. Why? I want to present it to you in this way. Why do I keep mentioning, why do I feel like I need to remind people that these are very either dance pieces or very danceable pieces? So, I mean, in modern music, in music that we're familiar with, like culturally familiar with, we don't really need to do this. I mean, if you feel a beat, whatever beat, it could be a simple 1, 2, 3, 4, it could be 4 on the floor, like electronic dance music. Could be something very syncopated, something funky. We instantly feel it, and I don't think anybody ever needs to say, hey, like pay attention to the pulse here. It's like very cool. You can really like dance to it. It comes naturally to us. In these pieces, I don't think that is the case for most people. And I think I finally figured out a reason why. I was kind of on the wrong path. My idea was that they're just kind of old-fashioned rhythms, but I don't think that's true. They are old-fashioned, in my opinion. So this prelude has what I call a galloping rhythm, which we see a lot in Bach and older music and Baroque music and even classical and more. This galloping rhythm, for example, like in jigs, a lot of the jigs are, it's kind of like an English term, right? A jig, like that was the G major French suite. The E major French suite, the jig there is the D major toccata doesn't have a jig. Well, I would call it a jig at the end, although Meredith, Little, and Natalie, Jenne don't identify it as such. It's kind of like and then in this piece, it's the same idea, this galloping rhythm of or this galloping rhythm, I feel like I call it galloping. I've never ridden a horse. I actually have ridden a horse once, and I got knocked off, and my shoes fell off, literally fell off like in the cartoons. Why do I feel like I've already mentioned that before in one of these episodes? Anyways, it feels kind of like that, this like boom, 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 this very like jumpy rhythm that I associate with, well, galloping, maybe in like the Titanic, if you've seen the scene. Well, I'm really having deja vu. Have I mentioned all this before? Let's say I haven't. In the Titanic, where, or like films where you have like older, older settings and people are dancing in this kind of like jumpy, skippy way. I associate this with thirds, with threes, dances or music where you really feel 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. And I think it is a kind of old-fashioned rhythm, an old-fashioned pulse that I haven't seen very often. I listen to a fair amount of music, but I can't say that I'm very knowledgeable about all sorts of music, so I think it's with a huge grain of salt. But I went through my library sometime when I was still working as a software developer, and over the course of like a year, I went through my library in alphabetical order, and just as I was working, I was listening to the music, and I would pick out like the best song my favorite song of that week as I was working, and then a couple of 3, 4, 5 honorable mentions. And I wrote a little bit about each one of those. I'm very proud of this project. Anyways, I put this up on my website so you can look it up if you want. But what I did as I was thinking about this issue, I went through that list, and I just do not see a lot of songs in 3, except occasionally waltzes. Although waltzes are super old-fashioned, but they still show up. Like Piano Man is actually a waltz. I think I saw a video of Elton John saying how he was surprised it was such a hit because it's a waltz at the end. It's a waltz. Dun 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 dun. You're the piano man. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 2 1 2 3 1 2 3. Howl's Moving Castle, like the theme from that is a waltz. The theme from Up. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. Whoop! I messed up the melody, but it's a waltz. Anyways, besides these waltzes, I just do not see a lot of songs in 3. Only in like what we unfortunately call world music, like some like Franco Luambo, I've seen it there, or like the Romanian Lăutar music. But in our world, whether it's like hip hop, rock, funk, soul, jazz, you might still have a couple of things in 3s, but it's just very rare. I don't see it, and my feeling was, okay, maybe I need to remind people that this is so danceable because it's kind of like an old-fashioned gallopy rhythm which you don't really feel very often, we're not familiar with. But I don't think that's the case. Because when I listen, maybe it's just me, when I do listen to music I'm not very familiar with, again, like Franco Lombard, like the Romanian Lăutari music, even if it is a strange rhythm, I'm just instantly locked into it, instantly feel it. And that's one of the beautiful things about dance and pulse and rhythm, is that it's as culturally ingrained as it can be. It's in the human nature to feel that pulse, those regular pulses. And I think the reason why with Bach we forget all of the danceable elements to it is just there's a lot of cruft built up around Bach, that he's just like a very logical composer, a lot of religious stuff, I mean, which is true. The fugues are very logical, pretty mathematical. He wrote a lot of religious music, which, by the way, a lot of religious music, some of the religious songs he wrote have dance, like actual dance elements in it, you know, Qurans and jigs and stuff like that. Anyway, so there's all this cruft, and we've built up an idea of what Bach is and what he should be like, and we forget to play him and to hear him through the joy of dance and pulse. And in this piece, it's just from beginning to end, everything is so amazing. My favorite danceable part is over here when he goes. Or at the beginning, boom, 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 boom. This is not in 3. The piece is actually, you can count it like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and just a simple 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But inside of every one of those pulses, those beats, is 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And even this section, which is so simple, what is it? I can't stop playing it. It's so readily available. Just get rid of all the cruft that you've built up around Bach, and just feel the joy of the dance here, this galloping rhythm. Don't even necessarily count it, although as you play the piece you will have to obviously count it, but just try to just feel this down, up, down, up, down, up, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And regain the joy of dance that is so readily available in Bach if we just forget about all of the cruft that we built up around him. All right, that took quite a while. I wonder how I'm doing on time. This might be one of our longest episodes yet, except for the beginning ones, which took about an hour, which is ludicrous. All right, let me wrap up with just a tiny bit of technique. There isn't too much I can say. There isn't too much I want to say about this, because by this point, you really should have built up a lot of the technique. A lot of the things that we've talked about before apply here as well. So I will say one thing specific to this piece, but let me remind you first about some of the important stuff to do. You really need very good 5-finger technique. So as you're practicing your scales and your arpeggios, when you're practicing your arpeggios, with these wide hand shapes, add in the 4th finger as well. Make sure to do stuff like this, with both hands, of course. So I'm still on a G major, but make sure to add all the other fingers. You could do a regular 7th like this, or a major 7th. This exercise over here is going to be very useful for the D major prelude. And you can do this with small arpeggios as well. So one of the difficult things in this piece, on the D major prelude piece, is that you need to go from like small, like narrow hand shape to a wider hand shape. Narrow, wide, narrow, wide. The ending is a wonderful exercise for this. All right, this is wide. This is more narrow. back to wide, wide, narrow, and so on. So in the narrow hand shapes, try to activate some of the other fingers. Keep it on an arpeggio technique. All right, I'm on A minor here. But try to activate some of the other fingers to get used to having an arpeggio where you activate almost all 5 of the fingers. Obviously a lot easier to do with the wide hand shapes than the narrow ones, but definitely do both. This is kind of like a prerequisite of being able to play arpeggios very smoothly, very powerfully with really all 5 of the fingers. Now, specific to this piece, there is a fingering required in what is the hardest section of this piece, and I think of the Well-Tempered Clavier as a whole, except for the fugues. There's fingering required here. This is a section. Now, the fingering that I use, I settled on this so that I do not have to move my hand very, very much. I used to have a fingering, I don't even remember it now, where I would, something like this. Okay, so in here, because I wanted to more easily go down from this F sharp to this B, I put my thumb on the F sharp. And I did this in a couple of other places as well, similar places. But it is way too hard at this speed to just jam your hand like this. If your hand is out here, it is difficult to move it in here and then back out and then back in and back out. This is important in certain pieces, and it is a very crucial skill to have. But I found that for this prelude, with Prelude was not having any of it. I could not do it. I really needed to choose a different fingering so that, as you can see, my thumb pretty much and my hand stays in a pretty similar position. Here I did move in a little bit, but not a lot. Not as much as would have been required if I were to move my thumb. So if I play all of these the places here where I need to move down to my 5th finger, like this instead of like this instead of with the thumb, I can keep my hand in a nicer, more stable position. Okay, let's see that again. More about the do 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 do. Okay, instead of, oh boy, that is what you want to avoid. Just like really going in with the thumb. This is very difficult because it's gonna force you to like from a. It's gonna force you to not to throw your hand, but you'll need to like jump over other keys so that you can land with the 3rd finger over here and finish off with the 5th. But it's much easier to do that than it is to jump around with the hand and the thumb move into the keyboard, out of the keyboard, into the keyboard, out of the keyboard. That was my opinion for me. I see that in this, I don't even know what edition this is. They have pretty much the same fingering. This is a Schirmer edition that I have. And they have the same idea. The same is true for the D major prelude, as we'll see in the next episode. And this, I've mentioned this before in some of the other episodes as well. I'm pretty sure the F major prelude, which we did very, very recently. So be aware of the fingering. If you're finding it difficult to play at speed, see if you haven't somehow used a fingering that forces your hand to just move way too much. And see if you can rejigger your fingering so that it stands, the hand is much more still. Okay, that's it for the fingering. Good luck with this piece. It took me way too many takes to get it, and I'm not even very happy with the final result. Pretty sure if I were to keep doing a couple of takes every day, I mean, I have played this piece quite well to my liking, especially recently. But again, it is very difficult. It's just a very, very difficult piece, but wonderful pedagogical exercise and very fun. So enjoy playing it. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and let's hear the piece.